So guys, it's been a while since I've done any N64 content on the channel, and I recently picked up Nuclear Strike 64 and I'm having a great time with it. Let's cover it today. Alright, before I start here, I've never played Nuclear Strike on the PS1. So this was actually my first experience with the Strike series since maybe Desert Strike on the Mega Drive. Also, for anyone wondering how I'm capturing footage today, I'm using S-Video out to HDMI conversion, and I have the memory expansion installed on the N64 because this is one of the few N64 games that actually utilizes it really well. Okay, so let me start by saying, what is Nuclear Strike 64? So it's essentially an action strategy hybrid helicopter game. There isn't actually that many on the N64 at all. I actually think this is probably one of maybe the few helicopter games on the entirety of the system. And basically, you carry out multiple objectives in a large scenario or a large map. Once you complete those, you can eventually land and then you move on to the next zone. Luckily, you can save between each zone, but bear in mind, I wasn't actually able to save to the cart. I actually had to have a memory card slotted into my controller. So that's just a point to note. Some of them save to the SRAM in the battery, but this one doesn't seem to do that. Now, importantly, when I always talk about N64 games, I talk about the controls first, because the controls in any N64 game have always been a mixed bag, and that's because of the design and the makeup of the controller. And the fact is the D-pad is so far to the left that some games just struggle to implement a lot of the keys and buttons and functions on the actual controller itself. But what I will say about Nuclear Strike 64 is this. It actually uses a similar control scheme to that of Lilac Wars, aka Star Fox 64, in where it allows you to focus solely on the control stick with your left hand and the Z button, and then you essentially focus on BA and then the C stick, and occasionally the R button to strafe. So it keeps your control scheme centralized and close together, and it works really, really well for this system. So next, let me expand a bit more on the actual graphical options. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I am using the memory expansion for this game, and it actually uses it really, really well, as in that it actually increases the frame rate of the game, which drastically helps this. What I did was, I have two N64s and I popped one in just to do a quick comparison between having it and without having it, and the memory expansion genuinely does make a huge difference. You can also actually increase the resolution somewhat. So this is the medium set resolution, and I find it's the nicest balance between frame rate and picture quality. Now, the other thing about the N64 version, bear in mind, is I do think the sound quality is a little bit lower quality than it would be on the PS1. The only reason I know that now is because I watched a video of it being played on the PS1. It definitely sounds higher quality sound, but what I will say is, as compressed as it is on the N64, it still sounds great. It's got a music soundtrack, and it seems to have all the audio sound effects intact, but what it doesn't include is the cheesy cutscenes, so that may be a bit of a loss for some who may be familiar with the PS1 version. So next, let's start talking about the campaign structure. So basically, in a nutshell, there's multiple levels, and within each level there's a scenario to complete, and every single scenario is essentially a large map. There's a ton of variety here, and there's multiple objectives within each scenario, which makes it kind of feel like you're playing a dynamic game. Now, if you've played the campaign a couple of times, it's not technically dynamic, but it just feels like that as you're playing it, because the objectives are coming into you in a natural order. You complete two objectives and two more may unlock on the same map. And as we speak on the map in this is really, really well done. It's brilliant in how it's implemented. And again, it's based around the controller. So basically, you can see the entirety of the zone, and you can filter out your assets. So your assets being that you would need to pick up fuel, because you can run out of fuel, armor, of ammo. So within that zone, you can go on an attack run. You need to go back and you need to load up. You can identify where those locations are on the map and travel back. Same thought process goes for finding your primary objectives, finding your allies, your enemies, and obviously your primary and secondary objectives. So as I mentioned, navigating the menus within the map itself, really, really well done. Only uses a couple of key simple buttons to do so. And again, it reiterates the feeling that when developers thought through this clearly and how best they could utilize the N64 controller, this is another great example. Okay, so I think most importantly, do you want to know, is it fun to play? Yes, it absolutely is fun to play. And I think what makes it so much fun is simply the variety of objectives within one zone. You're never going to be doing the same thing 3 or 4 times over. Yes, you may eventually be doing the same thing in different zones and maps, but they come in different orders, so it always feels fresh when you face a new objective. Some of my favorite ones were rescuing the prisoners and dropping them off to helipads while you're getting attacked. Another one where is a pretty cool mission where you're escorting an entire army as they're attacking, so you're essentially giving them air support while there's tanks and troops moving in and attacking the enemy as well. So loads and loads of different variety in this, and the variety also expands to the actual level designs themselves. Not one zone will feel the same, look the same, and I think that's important as well. Anyway, guys, that's it for today's review on Nuclear Strike 64. Let me know if you've played this version down in the chat, or if you're a fan of the games on the PS1 or the PC. Share your comments, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys.